We are live today. This is Aloha Aini Living Conversations, or just Aini Living Conversations. We get together each week. This is the 206th session we have. And today we're talking about the origin of feeling, a very, very powerful, profound subject that is going to help us in many different aspects of our lives. Let me get this, I have this echo somewhere. Hold on. I'm sorry. It's just
Yeah, no, that's okay.
technical thing. Where is this coming from?
I don't hear it on my end.
Oh, cool. That's good. And why do I hear it then? And where's it? Yeah, but I do is like it gets on my, where the hell is it? It's not even, there's no window. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna have to mute for now. And so I can't hear you. I'm gonna present this. Well, I had already presented this conversation. The origin of feeling. You're gonna tell us this investigation about what it how important our feelings are, or the difference between feeling and emotion. That's going to be a very interesting thing. And this touches everything in our lives. It helps us clear our paths into a greater understanding and into greater freedom. We can't have freedom if we don't look at everything that happens within us. If we don't work inside of us, we won't achieve any outer freedom. So we talk a lot about outside things, about aspects of reaching sovereignty and freedom in the outside world, but also we talk a lot about reaching that from the inside world. So this is Blue Hair and Women with you, and this is the origin of feeling. Welcome, everyone.
So, yeah, good evening. So, first of all, we need to understand that the word emotion didn't even come about till the 17th century. So, we all get stuck on emotions, but that
Hmm.
concept didn't even come about till the 17th century.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
The,
Before
the,
that,
the, the word itself.
the word itself.
Yeah.
So that
I found
begs
the
to
window, by the way,
answer.
so we can talk now. I fixed
That
it.
begs to ask the question of, well, are there even such things as emotions?
Okay.
Well, they're only concepts.
Hmm.
The myth of science is that there's biology fingerprints of emotions that are universal in all human beings, and that's just not true.
Okay.
So so emotions are made up shit. That's all they are.
Mm.
So take, for instance, the author of this. She said, okay, so let's say I'm eating a bag of chips and I
Hmm.
get to the bottom of the bag and I want more chips, but now I'm feeling guilty because I ate the whole bag, but yet I still want some more. And I'm kind of relieved that they're all gone. So I'm suffering from chiplessness. And all it takes is me going out and teaching this concept to people. And now we have an emotion called chiplessness.
Yeah.
That's
So
how emotions.
it's a thought. It would be kind of like a spirit, like an that's created, like an entity that we create.
Yeah, the quantum particle being or
Okay.
emotions are.
Okay.
That's all
So
they
this is from
are.
somewhere. Hmm.
So the origin of feeling. So feeling is not emotion. Think about the last time you were awash in pleasure, not sexual pleasure, but the everyday delights of gazing at a vivid sunset or sipping a nice cold glass of beer on a hot day or a nice hot cup of coffee on a cool morning. And now contrast this with feeling unpleasant, like when experiencing a cold or having an argument with somebody.
Hmm.
Pleasure and displeasure feel different, and these feelings are universal. So pleasure and displeasure, pleasant and unpleasant, are absolutely universal throughout all humanity. And I would say they're even in the animals because you can
Hmm.
tell when they feel displeasure.
Okay.
Emotions like anger and happiness are not universal, however, but pleasure and displeasure flow like a current through every waking moment of our life. These feelings come from an ongoing process inside us called interoception.
Mm.
Interoception is our brain's representation of all sensations from our internal organs and tissues, the hormones that are coursing through our blood, and our immune system. So
Wow,
everything
wow, wow.
inside of what?
Yeah, I
Sorry.
want to pause it because this is really interesting. And so just to help our viewers, let's have the image of this lady with a bag of chips, right? And I just thought of not now you're proving it. There's even a word, interoception. You're describing the whole process that happens within us, how it's like a second layer to the initial feeling. So the initial feeling this lady has is displeasure from eating all the chips, right?
From lack of chips. Her
From
first
lack of
one is,
chips,
oh my
which
God,
is
I'm out of
yeah,
chips. It's displeasure.
but which is like, shouldn't you be feeling pleasure because you just ate the chips? And I, that's what sodium glutamate does to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, notice she focused totally on the displeasure. First, it was displeasure about that the chips are gone, displeasure because I ate the whole bag in one sitting, and now but I still want more.
Okay, so yeah, that's a whole bunch of mine. Yeah, so keep going.
So yeah, I mean, but she made up all these other, I feel guilty, I feel sad,
Mhm,
right? And all of
mhm.
these are just concepts
Yeah,
created by words.
yeah. This
There's
is
no
really
such thing as happiness in the body. There is only pleasure or displeasure.
this is very helpful, and it would have been helpful hearing it a long time ago. I think
Yeah,
from
I know, right?
yep,
It would have been helpful hearing it from the day I was born.
yeah. But here it is. That's why we're here. That's what we're doing here.
So, interoception is our brain's representation of all the sensations from our internal organs and tissues, the hormones and neuropeptides and all that stuff that are in our blood and our immune system. So, everything, we need to remember that word, interoception. Everything inside of us is constantly in motion, even when we're sleeping. Our heart sends blood rushing through our arteries and veins, our lungs fill and empty, our stomach and intestines digest our food. And this interoceptive activity produces the spectrum of these basic feelings from pleasant to unpleasant, from calm to jittery, or just neutral.
Mhm,
That's all it does. And it's not really jittery, it's arousal. But
mhm,
so our brain's 86 billion neurons, which are connected into massive networks, never lie dormant waiting for a jump start. That's what the current myth is. Our neurons are always stimulating each other, sometimes millions at a time. Given enough oxygen and nutrients, these huge cascades of stimulation, known as intrinsic brain activity, continue from birth to death. And it's not random, it's structured by collections of neurons that continually fire together in networks called intrinsic networks.
mhm.
These networks operate somewhat like sports teams. A team has a pool of players, and at any given moment, some players are in the game and others are on the bench. So, intrinsic neural networks are like this. They have a pool of available neurons, and each time the network does its job, a different groupings of networks play or fire in synchrony to fill all the necessary positions on the team. So, this intrinsic brain activity is the origin of dreams, daydreams, imagination, mind wandering, and reveries, which we call stimulation. It also ultimately produces every sensation we experience, including our interoceptive sensations, which are the origins of our most basic pleasant and unpleasant and calm and jittery feelings. Our brain spends an eternity entombed in a dark, silent box. It can't get out and enjoy the world's marvels directly. It has to learn what is going on in the world only indirectly via scraps of information from the light, the sounds, vibrations, and chemicals that become sights, sounds, and smells. Our brain must figure out the meaning of those flashes and vibrations, and its main clues are our past experiences, which it constructs as simulations within its vast network of neural connections. So the Hindu concept that this world is nothing but a Maya is absolutely true, an illusion.
Mm.
Absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a simulation inside our body. Trapped within the skull with only past experiences as a guide, our brain makes predictions. So intrinsic brain activity is millions and millions and millions of nonstop predictions. Through predictions, our brain constructs the world we experience. You understand now why I told you I couldn't believe anything about any of the ranches, because my brain couldn't make predictions on how it could happen until I found the monastery and read about it and heard your story. And now we can lock in. We can lock in and say, yes, it's going to happen, because now my brain has made a prediction that it's possible.
Okay.
So predictions not only anticipate sensory input from outside the skull, they also explain it. Keep your eyes open and imagine a red apple. You can see the image because the neurons in your visual cortex have changed their firing patterns to simulate an apple. If you were in a grocery store, these firing neurons would be a visual prediction. But your past experience in a grocery store leads your brain to predict that you would see an apple rather than a red ball or the red nose of a clown. If your brain predicts perfectly, then the actual visual input of the apple captured by your retina carries no new information beyond the prediction. And this efficient predictive process is your brain's default way of navigating the world and making sense of it. It generates predictions to perceive and explain everything you see, hear, taste, smell, and touch. It also uses predictions to initiate your body's movements. And these predictions occur before you have any conscious awareness or intent about moving your body. So if your brain were merely reactive, it would be too inefficient to keep you alive. So think about that. All the spiritual gurus that tell you to stop and take a breath before you react, your brain doesn't react. It responds. We react due to our concept that we've created emotions with. It's not our brain acting.
It's our mind.
Yeah.
Which is not the brain.
Which is not the brain, exactly. If your brain were merely reactive, it would be too inefficient to keep you alive. Because we're always being bombarded by sensory input. One human retina, and we have two, one human retina transmits as much visual data as a fully loaded computer connection in every waking moment. Just one. And we have two. And we have other senses, right? Now multiply that by every sensory pathway you have. Think about how big of a computer it would take to do all that. I can't even imagine that, because I don't know. I can't imagine the computer connection, right? A fully loaded, I don't understand what that means. But a reactive brain would also be too expensive, metabolically speaking, because it would require more interconnections than it could maintain. So our brains have been wired for efficient predictions. You might think your perceptions of the world are driven by events in the world, but really they are anchored in your predictions, which are then tested against those little skipping stones of incoming sensory input. So through prediction and correction, your brain continually creates and revises your mental model of the world. It's a huge ongoing simulation that constructs everything you perceive while determining how you act. Sometimes the predictions aren't correct when compared to actual sensory input, and our brain has to make the adjustments. So consider this sentence. Once upon a time, in a magical kingdom far beyond the most distant mountains, there lived a beautiful princess who bled to death. And now you're going, wait a minute. That's not how it's supposed to end. That's the prediction. Did you find those last three words unexpected? That's because your brain predicted incorrectly based on its stored knowledge of fairy tales. And so it made a prediction error and then adjusted its prediction in the blink of an eye based on the final words.
Mm.
Your brain computes prediction errors quickly and efficiently. They aren't problems. They're a normal part of the operating instructions of our brains as it takes in sensory input. And without these prediction errors, life would just be a yawning bore. Nothing would be surprising or novel. So our brain's colossal ongoing storm of predictions and corrections could be thought of as billions of tiny droplets, and each little drop represents a certain wiring arrangement or prediction loop. And this arrangement holds at many levels throughout our entire brain. And interestingly enough, in the neocortex portion of the brain, there are 6 levels. Why is that so interesting? Because of the 6 lines of the hexagrams. The I Ching it's not only our DNA, it's loaded to this too.
Mm-hmm.
There are 6 levels in the neocortex at which neurons do different things. The deeper ones send out, the middle ones do, I forget what they do, but the outer ones, so the outer 2 receive, the middle coordinate, and the lower, the outer 2. I mean, so I read that today and I was like, oh, frick, there's the hexagrams of the I Ching right there.
Mm.
The I Ching is a biological divination.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's 64 hexagrams are the recipe for how our DNA can come together and change us.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't figured that out, but anyway, so the prediction loops hold at many different levels throughout our entire brain. Neurons participate in prediction loops with other neurons, and brain regions participate in prediction loops with other regions also. So our multitude of prediction loops run in a massive parallel process, parallel universes, right? Parallel process that continues nonstop for our whole life, forming the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touches that can make up our experience and dictate our actions. When prediction errors occur, our brain can resolve them in 2 general ways. The first is that the brain can be flexible and change the prediction. The second is to be stubborn and stick with the original prediction. But it then filters the sensory input so it's consistent with the prediction. So in short, your brain is not a simple machine reacting to stimuli in the outside world. It's structured as billions of prediction loops. And this other book I'm reading now is called Live Wired. He's like, neuroplasticity is a lie because plastic doesn't change shape ever. It's live wired, absolutely live wired.
Mm-hmm.
It's live wired with billions of prediction loops creating intrinsic brain activity. Our brain works like a scientist. It's always making a slew of predictions, just as a scientist is making a slew of hypotheses. Like a scientist, our brain uses knowledge, which is past experience, to estimate how confident you can be that each prediction is true. Your brain then tests its predictions by comparing them to incoming sensory input from the world, much as a scientist compares hypotheses against data in an experiment. So your brain can be a responsible scientist and change its predictions to respond to the data, but it can also be very much a biased scientist and selectively choose data that fits the hypothesis, or it can actually ignore the data altogether. Or it can be a curious scientist and focus on input. It can also run armchair experiments. That's why Einstein made most of his discoveries sitting in his rocker imagining. It can also run armchair experiments to imagine the world, a pure simulation without sensory input or prediction error. Through continual prediction, we experience a world of our own creation that is held in check by the sensory world. Our brain does not just predict the future, it can imagine the future at will, and no other animal brain can do that we know of. Probably because animals can't talk to us, and they probably can do that. But your brain is always predicting, and its most important mission is predicting your body's energy needs so you can stay alive and well. And these critical predictions and their associated prediction error turn out to be a key ingredient for making emotions that start out as concepts. So the brain, it makes the chemicals for the emotion, but they're not, there's no biological stamp. Again, emotions are all just concept. The only feelings we have are pleasant or unpleasant, pleasure or displeasure. Any movement of our body is accompanied by movement in the body. So our inner body movements and their interoceptive consequences occur every moment of our life. From our brain's point of view, locked inside our skull, our body is just another part of the world it must explain. Our pumping heart, our expanding lungs, and our changing temperature and metabolism send sensory inputs to our brain that is noisy and ambiguous. A single interoception cue, such as a dull ache in our abdomen, could mean many things. So the brain must explain bodily sensations to make them meaningful, and its major tool for doing so is prediction. So our brain models the world from the perspective of someone with our body. Just as our brain predicts the sights, smells, and sounds and touches and tastes from the world in relation to the movements of our head and limbs, it also predicts the sensory consequences of movements inside our body. And usually we experience interoception only in general terms. Those simple feelings of pleasure, displeasure, arousal, or calmness. In every waking moment, our brain gives our sensations meaning. The various regions of our brain form an interoceptive network, and the network has body budgeting regions. Each time our body budgeting regions predict a motor change, like speeding up our heart, they also predict the sensory consequences of the change. These sensory predictions are called interoceptive predictions. So our body budgeting regions play a vital role in keeping us alive. And every time our brain moves any part of our body, inside or out, it spends some of its energy resources, the stuff it uses to keep our organs, our metabolism, and our immune system and all running. We replenish our body's resources by eating, drinking, and sleeping, and we reduce our body spending by relaxing with loved ones and making love and being in partnership. To manage all of this spending and replenishing, our brain must continually predict our body's energy needs, like a budget for our body. Our body budgeting regions make predictions to estimate the resources to keep you alive and flourishing using past experience as a guide. So whenever our brain predicts a movement, whether it's getting out of bed in the morning or taking a sip of coffee, our body budgeting regions adjust our budget. And when our brain predicts that our body will need a quick burst of energy, these regions instruct our adrenal glands on our kidneys to release the hormone cortisol. People call cortisol the stress hormone, and this is actually a mistake. So we've actually probably mislabeled all the hormones. I mean, Candace Pert discovered that there's molecules of emotion, but they're only molecules of displeasure or pleasure. Mm-hmm. They're not molecules of anger. Okay. That's what we need to get through there. There's no emotions. There's only displeasure. There's only feelings. Mm-hmm. So cortisol, right? So our brain predicts uh, that cortisol is needed, so cortisol is released, and it also happens to include times we're stressed. So its main purpose is to flood our cortisol's main purpose is to flood our bloodstream with glucose to provide immediate energy to cells, allowing for muscle cells to stretch and contract so we could run, for one example. So cortisol is also involved in lovemaking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of our internal motion is accompanied by interoceptive sensations, though we're not wired to experience them precisely. So our interoceptive network controls our body, budgets our energy resources, and represents our internal sensations all at the same time. Withdrawals from our body's budget don't actually require physical movement. Suppose you see someone walking towards you and you believe bad things or negative things. Say like that he or she judges everything you say and do. And so, even though no physical movement is called for, your body now predicts that your brain predicts that your body needs energy and makes a budget withdrawal, releasing cortisol and flooding glucose into your bloodstream. And then you also have a surge in interoceptive sensations. Think about this. Someone walks towards you while you're standing still, and your brain predicts that you need fuel because you have an unpleasant history with that person.
Hmm.
This is why I told you in the voice message that this is why my body's not allowing Jaime to move in.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of my marriages have cost me huge. Because I never focused on pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I see that all the time happening where we go against our own words, our own desires. Like like our mind's gone one way, and then but some other aspect of us is avoiding that same.
Right, but we don't realize that it's internal because we only feel two things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Only displeasure or pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had felt pleasure in any of the marriages, they'd still be there, right? So there was a lot of displeasure associated, and so now my body does not want to allow another one to move, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it costs too much.
Yeah.
So that's why I spent this weekend purging memories. Come on, brain, let's dump these memories. That's the past. They're gone. They no longer serve us. So, in this manner, any event that significantly impacts our body budget becomes personally meaningful to us. So to perturb our budget, though, we don't even require another person or object to be present. We can just imagine. Every simulation impacts our body budget. And as it turns out, we spend at least half our waking hours simulating rather than paying attention to the world around us. And this pure simulation strongly drives our feelings of pleasure versus displeasure. So when it comes to managing, so we're costing ourselves, we're costing ourselves tons of body resources when we just let our imagination run amok.
Okay.
It
must be hard to stop it, or?
Well, I mean, yeah, that means that's why you got to always pay attention to the internal conversation going on in your head, because it's making all kinds of body budget withdrawals that you probably. That reminds me of the movie Top Gun, where the commander says to Tom Cruise, "Son, your ego is writing checks. It's that inner voice that's constantly running conversation in our head is writing checks that our body can't. And that is why Jaime is broke all the time financially. because he's always up in his head. He's always stressing. He is depleting his body budget faster than he.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I understand this,
Yeah, it's
it's
really helpful.
crazy. So, however, when it comes to managing our body budget, our brain doesn't have to go it alone. Other people regulate our body budget too. So when we interact with friends, lovers, and children, we synchronize breathing, heartbeats, and other physical signals with them that lead to tangible benefits. This is why tantric sex is so powerful. Holding hands with loved ones or even keeping their photo on our desk at work reduces activation of our body budgeting regions and makes us less bothered by pain. Now, if you're standing at the bottom of a steep mountain with friends, it will appear less steep and easier to climb than if you're alone, because they're helping support.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now if you grow up in poverty, a situation that leads to chronic body budget imbalance and an overactive immune system, those body budgeting problems are reduced if you have a supportive person in your life. So every person you encounter, every prediction you make, every idea you imagine, and every sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell that you fail to anticipate all have budgetary consequences and corresponding interoceptive predictions. Your brain must contend with this continuous, ever-changing flow of interoceptive sensations from the predictions that keep you alive. And they are the scientific basis for the simple feelings of pleasure versus displeasure, arousal, and calmness that we experience every day. For some, the flow is like a trickle of a tranquil brook. For others, it's like a raging river. Science has a word called affect.
Mm-hmm.
Affect is the general sense of feeling that we experience throughout the day. It's not an emotion. It is the feeling of how pleasant or unpleasant we feel. And science calls this valence.
Okay.
So the pleasantness of the sun on our skin, the deliciousness of food, the discomfort of a migraine, they're all called affective valence. The second feature of affect is how aroused or calm or agitated you feel. The energized feeling of anticipating good news, the fatigue of after a long run, the weariness from lack of sleep are examples of high and low arousal. Anytime you have an intuition that an investment is risky or profitable, or gut feeling that someone is trustworthy or an asshole, that's also affect. Even a completely neutral feeling is affect. Philosophers describe valence and arousal, affective valence and arousal, as basic features of human experience. Scientists largely agree that affect is present from birth and that babies can feel and perceive pleasure versus displeasure. But they disagree about other parts of that. That doesn't matter. I mean, think about it. You had babies, they experience pleasure versus displeasure.
Mm-hmm.
I have animals. I know they do. So affect depends on interoception. So it is a current throughout our lives, even when completely still or asleep. Affect is a fundamental aspect of consciousness, like brightness and loudness is. So when our brain represents wavelengths of light reflected from objects, we experience brightness or darkness. And when our brain represents air pressure changes, we experience loudness or softness. So when our brain represents interoceptive changes, you experience pleasantness or pleasure and unpleasantness or displeasure with a state of arousal or calmness. So affect, brightness, and loudness all accompany us from birth to death. Now, interoception is not a mechanism dedicated to manufacturing affect, the pleasant versus unpleasant. Interoception is a fundamental feature of our nervous system. And why we experience those sensations as affect is one of the great mysteries of science. interoception did not evolve for us to have feelings, but to regulate our body budget. So our affective balances of pleasure and displeasure with the affective balances of calmness and arousal are simple summaries of our body's budgetary state. So when we're experience pleasant, we're flush. If we're in displeasure, we're overdrawn. So if we need a deposit, how desperately? When our body budget is unbalanced, our affect doesn't instruct us how to act in any specific way. It simply prompts our brain to look for explanations. And our brain constantly uses past experience to predict which objects and events will impact your body budget to change your affect. So one way to describe to your affect at a single point in time is to think of a circle with 4 directions, or cut into three pieces of pie on one and 3 pieces of pie on the other side. Mm-hmm. In one direction, there's an unpleasant balance with high arousal, unpleasant balance with mild arousal, and unpleasant balance with low arousal. Then on the other side of the circle, there's pleasant balance with high arousal, pleasant balance with mild arousal, and pleasant balance with low arousal. The middle point would be neutral balance and neutral arousal. And our affect is always some combination of this balance of pleasant versus unpleasant, and arousal or calmness. So affect has far-reaching consequence between simple feeling. Imagine you're a judge presiding over a prisoner's parole case. You're listening to the inmate's story and you have a bad feeling. So you deny parole. Your bad feeling, which is unpleasant affect, seems evidence that your judgment is correct. But could your affect have misled you? No, your affect didn't mislead you. You're just... Scientists in Israel found that judges were significantly more likely to deny parole if the hearing was just before lunchtime. So imagine this. We give our authority to someone in a black robe who is so fucking disconnected from their body that they don't know a bad feeling from hunger.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Their affect didn't mislead them. It's that they're so freaking disconnected from their body that they don't know what hunger is versus a bad feeling.
Mm. And we can't blame them. And we can't blame them. I mean,
we can't. We just have to understand that.
They have to understand they're responsible for changing it, but...
Yeah, but we also, then that gives us reason to realize that they're not an authority over us. If they're so fucking disconnected from their body, this is why do we need external authority? If they're so fucking disconnected from their body that they can't determine if they're hungry or experiencing something different.
Yeah.
Right. So the scientific experiments in Israel found that so they experienced their interoceptive sensations not as hunger, but evidence for their parole decisions. So when you experience affect without knowing the cause, you are more likely to treat it as information about the world rather than your experience of the world. And making decisions on, a psychiatrist has studied this and said making decisions based on gut feelings is called affective realism, because we experience supposed facts about the world that we created in part by our feelings. For example, and the scientific study in Israel showed that after lunch, when the judges were no longer experiencing hunger or displeasure in the form of hunger, then they started granting parole again. So, for example, people report more happiness and life satisfaction on sunny days, but only when they are not explicitly asked about the weather. So if someone's not asking you about the weather, you're not likely to say, oh yeah, I feel shitty or I feel displeasure. So, however, when you apply for something, make sure you do the interview on a sunny day, because interviewers tend to rate applicants more negatively on rainy days. And the next time a friend is irritable with you, remember effective realism, because the change in the body budget that person is experiencing as affect does not have anything to do with you as displeasure.
Mhm.
Affect leads us to believe that objects in the world are inherently negative or positive. So the phrase an unpleasant image is really shorthand for an image that impacts my body budget, producing sensations that I experience as unpleasant. In these moments of effective realism, we affect the property, or we experience affect as the property of an object, rather, or even the outside world, rather than what we're experiencing internally. So this is what is really important, is we have to realize that it's an internal feeling. We need to focus on these feelings of pleasure, displeasure, and stop labeling them as otherwise. So we realize that if we're feeling displeasure, it's just our body budget. It was, right? It's triggered. The body budget system was triggered, giving you a feeling of unpleasantness. It has nothing to do with the object. And that's, God, we've got to be teaching this to our kids from grade school on up as soon as they can understand this. We employ affect as information, creating effective realism throughout daily life. Food is delicious or bland, paintings are beautiful or ugly, people are nice or mean. Sometimes effective realism is helpful, and sometimes it also shapes some of humanity's most troubling problems. The thing is, a bad feeling doesn't always mean something is wrong. It just means that your body budget is being taxed. Your effective realism can lead to tragic consequences. In July 2007, an American gunner aboard an Apache helicopter in Iraq mistakenly killed a group of 11 unarmed people, including some photojournalists. The gunner misjudged the journalist's camera to be a gun. One explanation is that effective realism caused the soldier in the heat of the moment to imbue a neutral object, a camera, with unpleasant balance. And the other part of that we need to look at is that the soldier's been taught that he's in a war zone, so everyone's his enemy or hers, right? So they don't even... Effective realism also plays a role in police shootings of unarmed people. People like to say that seeing is believing, but effective realism demonstrates that believing is seeing. Which is important to understand for manifestors, right? But also, if your brain can't make a prediction about it, it's probably not going to happen. Yeah, they woke up. Suppose you're walking alone in a forest and you hear a rustle in the leaves and see a vague movement on the ground. As always, your body budgeting regions make predictions. And one would be that there's a snake nearby. So these predictions prepare you to see and hear a snake, and they predict that your heart rate should increase and your blood vessels should dilate in preparation to run. This causes interoceptive sensations, so that your brain must predict these sensations as well. And so as a result, your brain simulates the snake, the bodily changes, and the bodily sensations. And these predictions translate in the balance of agitation. And maybe a snake slithers out and the sensory input matched the predictions and you run, or perhaps no snake is present and the leaves were just rustled by the wind, but you see a snake anyway. That's effective realism.
Mm-hmm.
Another possibility is there is no snake and you didn't see a snake. In this case, your visual predictions of a snake are correct quickly. However, your interoceptive predictions are not. Your body budgeting regions keep predicting adjustments to the budget long after the predicted need is over. So you might take a while to calm down. Your body budgeting regions are mostly like a deaf scientist. They make predictions but have a hard time listening to the incoming evidence. So whenever you make a big deposit or withdrawal from your body budget, you might have to wait for a while for your brain to catch up. So take, for instance, you eat a meal and you think you need more, wait 20 minutes and see if you're still really hungry. So marathon runners learn this. They feel fatigue early in the race when their body's budget is still solvent. So they keep running until the unpleasant feeling goes away. They ignore the effective realism that insists they're out of energy. What this means is that the sensations we feel from our body don't always reflect the actual state of our body. The effect is driven by simulations in our interoceptive network. So we feel what our brain believes. The power of beliefs, right? Affect primarily comes from prediction. Affect is the pleasure or displeasure. So everything we feel is based on predictions from our knowledge of past experience. So we truly are architects of our experience. Believing is feeling. Scientists with the right equipment can change people's affect by directly manipulating body budgeting regions that issue predictions. And our interoceptive network doesn't just help determine how we feel, it's body budgeting regions that are some of the most powerful and well-connected predictors in our entire brain and body. These regions are loud and bossy, mostly like a deaf scientist with a big megaphone. And this is our neural network that Jacobo Grinberg said makes our reality, these body budgeting regions. So they launch predictions for vision, hearing, and our other senses, our primary sensory regions, which don't issue predictions of their own, but are wired to listen. You might think that in everyday life, the things we see and hear influence how we feel, but mostly it's the other way around. What we feel alters our sight and hearing. Interoception in the moment is the most influential to perception, and how we act then is what the outside world is. You might believe that you are a rational creature weighing pros and cons before deciding how to act, but the structure of your neocortex makes this an implausible fiction. Your brain is wired to listen to your body budget. Affect is in the driver's seat and rationality is a passenger. So pleasure is the driver. Pleasure versus displeasure is the driver. That's the pure eros, right? Your everyday decisions are driven by a loudmouth, mostly deaf scientist who views the world through affect-colored glasses. Antonio Damasio, a neuroscientist, observes that a mind requires passion, which would be affect, for wisdom. So we need the passion, we need the pure eros pleasure for wisdom. And affect is not just necessary for wisdom, it's irrevocably woven into the fabric of every decision. The shouting power of body budgeting circuitry has serious implications for the financial world. It helped to precipitate the greatest economic disasters of our time. Because the science of economics used to employ a concept called the rational economic person, or Homo economicus, who controls his or her emotions to make reasoned economic judgments. However, if the body budgeting regions drive predictions to every other brain network, then the model of rational economic person is based on a biological fallacy. You cannot be a rational actor if your brain runs on interoceptively infused predictions. So the economic model of global economy is rooted in a neural fairy tale. Think about that. You cannot overcome feeling through rational thinking because the state of your body budget is the reason for your feeling. The state of your body budget is the basis for every thought and perception you have. So interoception and affect are built into every moment. We humans have long believed that our rationality is what makes us special in the animal kingdom. The origin of our brain myth begins with ancient subcortical circuits for basic survival that we supposedly inherited from reptiles. We call this the brainstem. Sitting atop these circuits is an alleged emotion system called the limbic system that we supposedly inherited from early mammals. And then wrapped around the so-called limbic system, like icing on a cake, is our allegedly rational and uniquely human neocortex. This illusory arrangement remains one of the most successful misconceptions in human biology. Neuroscientists that know that all brain divisions are present in all vertebrates, and even Dr. Violdo is still teaching this, that the animals don't have a neocortex. They do. I haven't seen my own brain, but I've seen other humans' brains, and I've seen brains from animals, and their brain looks just the same as ours. It's just smaller. But yet we're taught that they don't have the same brain we do.
Yeah.
Well, so how do brains evolve? They reorganize as they expand to keep themselves efficient and nimble. The bottom line is this: the human brain is anatomically structured so that no decision or action can be free of interoception and affect, which is pleasure versus displeasure. Mm-hmm. No matter what fiction we tell ourselves about how rational we are, our bodily feeling right now will project forward to influence what we will feel and do in the future. That's why I said my bodily feeling about being in a continual relationship with a man is displeasure. So it's not going to let it happen. Mm. So I have to change. And so that's why changing that is important to what I've been doing the last couple of days now, is marinating in pleasure by remembering all the pleasant experiences that I've had with Jaime so far, so that my body learns that it's pleasurable to be with a man. It knows that. My brain knows that, but it also knows that the past experience really taxed my body budgeting system. Mm-hmm. It's therefore related to displeasure. So anyway, every thought, memory, perception, or emotion that we construct, emotions are constructed, includes something about the state of our body, a little piece of interoception. A visual prediction, for example, doesn't just answer the question, what did I see last time I was in this situation? It answers, what did I see last time I was in this situation when my body was in this state? Mm-hmm. Any change in affect, we feel more or less pleasant, more or less calm or aroused as a result of interoceptive predictions. And affect is our brain's best guess about the state of our body budget. So like last night when I told you the pendulum was swinging, I was watching a movie where the lady's husband died. And then she was a part of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and then they were singing these hymns, and I was done. Now I'm in displeasure, right? It's like, oh my God, right? Understanding this is, whoa. So interoception is one of the most important ingredients in what we experience as reality. If we didn't have interoception, the physical world would be meaningless noise. Our interoceptive predictions, which produce our feelings of affect, pleasure versus displeasure, determine what we care about in the moment, and this is our affective niche. From the perspective of our brains, anything in our affective niche could potentially influence our body budget, and nothing else in the universe matters. That's why I said I can understand his affective niche when he gets there is just pleasure or is safety. I don't think he's associated with his body enough to think of that it could possibly be displeasure and it's taxing his body budget system, because there's a lot of memories of displeasure with a marriage in that house. But he perceives it as pleasure. So nothing else in the world matters, and he won't come out of that, right? Because it's safe. Understanding that is nothing else in the universe matters, right? That's when I also realized, oh my goodness, right? This memories, bad memory, or memories of displeasure in my marriages are like, nothing else matters. You're not getting a new one. Because so this means we truly construct the environment in which we live. So we construct our environment and our reality by virtue of what sensory input from the physical environment our brain selects. It admits some of the information and ignores some as noise. This selection is intimately linked to interoception. Our brain expands its predictive repertoire to include anything that might impact our body budget in order to meet our body's metabolic demands. This is why affect is a property of consciousness. Interoception as a fundamental part of the predictive process is a key ingredient of the emotions we construct. However, interoception alone cannot explain emotion. An emotion category like anger or sadness is far more complex than a simple feeling of unpleasantness and arousal. And an emotion category like anger or sadness has a whole lot of concepts with it. So it's purely constructed. Affect alone also doesn't explain how we construct our experiences of sadness, nor how one instance of sadness differs from another, nor does affect tell you what sensations mean or what to do about them. We must give affect meaningfulness so our brain can execute specific actions. And one way to make meaning is to construct instances of emotion. So
that seems like it needs to keep going.
Yeah, I need to know more about this. I don't know that anyone has any more information though about this interoceptive and affect.
Well, I was thinking about it as you were talking right now, and even sometimes what we feel as comfort or discomfort can be switched around by our own decisions.
Not if we're fully connected with our body. This is why the most important thing is the presencing practice that
I do it all the time.
Eckhart Tolle talks about, because it's like, you can say.
No, like for example, I used to not like some kind of food maybe, and I can rewire myself to like it. And then I actually like it later.
Well, that's what they're talking about here, is we make predictions that, right? But that's not actually what your body feels. Your body doesn't necessarily feel displeasure about that food.
Well, it's not even pleasure or displeasure. It's just my body's just telling me, this is a little bit bitter, it's a little bit salty, it's a little bit, whatever. And then I make the idea of this is good or bad.
Right.
This is a vast subject, and going into the mind, into the brain, into consciousness, that's something that there's a whole big league of people researching that, and you'd be amazed how, I mean, you hear any one of those conversations and you're like, wow. And then later on, you hear another one which kind of contradicts parts of the first one, or at least kind of does. And you're just, all you can come to understand is that we don't, it's like the best wisdom is, I don't know anything. Because I mean, touching consciousness, that's, and how we were wired, and in our own malleability or lack of malleability. It's a very, very deep thing, but I'm glad that we're going into that, because that's what we need to be going into if we are to
Yeah.
change anything.
Well, and that's why I think this is the most basic thing we need to learn is we have only two feelings, pleasant or unpleasant. And what you're talking about was effective realism, that affect leads us to believe that objects in the world are inherently negative or positive. But it's not. It's this inner state of our body. So this is, I mean, and mindfulness doesn't even begin to address this. This is why I have just recently, since I'd been doing it for a while, but this is where I'm even more focused on now, just trying to strip everything away, all the concepts, and understand that they're all just fucking concepts. And this morning to just go, I'm feeling displeasure. My body budget is being taxed. About this situation, and I'm going to be okay with it. I can handle it. Right? I'm not gonna project this outward. This is all going on in my body. And the biggest reason it's going on in my body is because of effective realism, because of all the concepts that I've had about relationships.
Yeah.
And so that's what, I mean, I think that's our biggest task is to just freaking listen to the body and go, what is it I'm really feeling? Is it neutral? Is it pleasure or displeasure? And why might I be feeling the displeasure? Is it because I was feeling it this morning because it was in relation to my relationship with Jaime? Why am I feeling displeasure? Well, because of all these goddamn fucking concepts about relationships and how he should be.
Yeah, so you're feeling something that is happening inside of you. It's not even something that is happening. It's like it's your own introspection. It's like a feeling of your own introspection. Or what do you call it? This is a very useful word.
It was a feeling. It was an instance of emotion. Okay. It was an instance of emotion constructed by all the concepts. It was an instance of emotion that was non-existent, that I was allowing to tax my body budget because of concepts, of societal concepts.
Yeah.
And I got to the bottom and it's like, okay, so I'm feeling a little bit of displeasure. Let me just eat and forget about all that other shit.
Yeah, that happens to me so much, where I'll getting to thinking so many bad things, and the only thing that is really happening is I'm hungry.
Yeah. It's so...
And it brings us back to the body. Take care of the body first, then try to fix other things.
And yeah, I mean, it's stripping away all the concepts, right?
Yeah,
and going, well, it would just make me feel better if I could sit and talk to Jaime and tell him about all this. And it's like, why do you need to do that? No, you can, first of all, you can sit and have a conversation in your head with him about it, and he'll get the conversation eventually. Second of all, don't make it about what he needs to do. This is all yours. This is all your concepts, Ingrid. This is all your concepts. So let's dump the concepts. Let's kind of look at concepts and dump them. because they're no good. They're not. They're no longer useful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to eat. and it helped. It brought my body budget back to not depleted.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I mean, I'm I don't, you know what? This is brand new freaking territory for me. And half of it, some of this, what she said, doesn't make sense, and some of it does. As I'm even writing it, it's like, wait a minute, it's like you just said the opposite of what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but that's all science knows, and that's the most I've gotten from anybody. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's time for us to strip down everything to just and understand pleasure or pleasant versus unpleasant or displeasure is and it's a gradient like a rainbow. There's no happy, sad, anything in there. It's just there might be different colors. Aha, colors, right? Colors would have there might be colors to that spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
that pendulum swing like a rainbow has, but it's not concept, because happiness is a freaking concept. Anger is a freaking concept. It's
Mm-hmm. Wow, so it is a big, huge rabbit hole,
it's
whatever it is,
huge.
and one that very few dare to tread on. And if we don't dare tread on it, we are then going to be, no matter what we do, watch or hear, we're going to be manipulated by ourselves into keeping the structures.
Hey,
We might
right?
be, um, we
Isn't that the
might,
case? We're so worried about leaving others because they might manipulate us, we you said that. That's the most one of the most profound things you could have said. We manipulate ourselves with realism.
yeah. Yeah, so we're making real breakthrough here. That's what I'm happy for, and we need to go, I guess. We
Yeah,
need to.
yeah.
So we're gonna
Just
go
give them over, but
into the. Are we gonna continue this? Wow, that's the
yeah,
white cat. I like that color. Oh, it's so good.
next week we're going to talk about concepts.
Okay,
Yeah,
just concepts.
and how concepts construct emotions.
Okay, okay. Well,
Concepts, the origin of emotions.
how I like that. How concepts construct emotions.
Yeah,
How about that one? That's the title.
yeah,
Okay. So there's no change in time. We're now at 7 Central Standard Time, both Mexico and the US. If you want to join us live, otherwise leave some kind of, let us know what you think about this. Is there something you know? Is there someone you know that might know more? Please comment that in our comment section, and please visit alohainidawliving.com if you want to join this project of research and of transformation and of the dawning of new humanity, because that's what we're doing here, folks. So thanks
yeah,
for being here, and thank you, Blue Heron Woman, and we'll see you next week.
yep, sure will.
Goodbye.
Bye.